and welcome back to Shutterdrives Media. With us, we have one of the most special cars produced by Maruti Suzuki in India. This is the 2007 SX4. This is the car which a lot of you have been requesting, and we have this car finally with us today. A big shout out and thanks to my dear friend Dr. Anish Vidyashankar, who is also known as the famous walking violinist. Check out his Instagram profile. You can see the screenshot here and follow him for some crazy musical content. Before we start on the review, I just have a couple of questions for him. Firstly, I want to know how has been his ownership experiences. He's the only single owner of this car since the last 17 years. What is the best thing that he likes about this car, and what is the one thing that he does not like about this car personally? Thank you so much for joining in.
I think the car has been phenomenal. The things that I really like about the car is the ground clearance and the way it drives generally. And also I feel that maintaining the car has been a breeze. There's not been many issues with the car at all. And moreover, ingress and egress from the car for anyone who comes and sits in the car is very easy. So those are the things I like about the car. The only thing I dislike about the car is maybe it could have done with a 6th gear, because it feels very strained in 5th gear when we go above 130 kilometers per hour.
So if somebody wants to buy an SX4 today in the pre-owned car market, what are a couple of things that they should look out for?
So I feel that the car needs to be first of all a bit low run and maintained well with Maruti itself, because a lot of these parts come directly from Japan. Like for example, the lower control arms of these cars are directly imported from Japan, and these are quite expensive. So just make sure that the mechanical parts are all intact and are original. That's the main thing to look for.
Thanks a bunch for the important advice, and let's get started with the car. So one of the specialities of this car was the insane ground clearance of 190 millimeters, and this ground clearance was more than the Mahindra Scorpio. And this ensured that it was very easy to get inside and get outside the car. And this was a great boon for elderly people, because people back then were slightly uncomfortable getting inside and getting outside low slung sedans. And this is exactly where this car bridged the gap between these low slung sedans and the SUVs. And not just that, this car was special in many ways. This car was so premium for Maruti Suzuki that Maruti Suzuki decided, hey, let's do one thing, let's skip the LXI variant completely and let's just focus on the better variants. And then of course this is the walking violinist, the top end model ZXI variant, which looks spectacular. And this car has done just 48,900 kilometers in a span of 17 years. And every single thing in this car is maintained so immaculately. I always believe that, Bangalore cars are the best maintained cars in the entire country, and this is a prime shine example of what best the car maintenance can get in the country. And speaking of the design language, and this design was very modern for 2007. I mean, when I saw the car, it took some time for me to accept that, okay, this is the car that is by Maruti Suzuki, but eventually it grew over time, especially the rear design. Talking about the front design, you had the halogen headlamps here, which were really nice, and you had front fog lamps. I'll talk about a very cool quirk about the rear fog lamps. Modern days, you don't get front fog lamps in the car, but this car actually got front fog lamps and rear fog lamps as well. And I really absolutely love this spectacular golden shade in this car, which looks very nice and elegant. Going to the side of the car, you had this 16-inch alloys. Now the special thing about these alloys is this car did not get just 4 alloy wheels. Maruti Suzuki was very generous back then. Suzuki did not know the meaning of cost cutting. They wanted to give what consumers wanted. They did not want to deprive consumers of anything less than the top-notch quality when they paid the premium money. And that's why you had a 5th alloy wheel in this car, not just 4 alloy wheels. Look at the A-pillar design here. This is not your conventional normal A-pillar. This is something very unique, because you had a split here. And Maruti Suzuki claimed that this was done to ensure better rollover protection. That is, in case of a collision, in case of an unfortunate rollover in the car, the occupants were slightly safer because of this unique design, which also looks damn cool. And then you have this nice indicators here, and then you have this nice ORVMs here, which were electronically controlled in 2007, which was a really big thing. Moving to the side of the car, you must really appreciate the way the rear door opens. This car, trust me, was used by a lot of government officials because of this primary reason. It was super easy to get inside, super easy to come outside, and the doors open really wide. The price of this car started from 6.1 lakhs for the VXI variant ex-showroom, but this car, the ZXI, costed around 8.5 lakh rupees on road Bangalore. When you speak of quirky cars, probably Maruti Suzuki is not the brand that might come on top of your mind, but I'll change that perception for you today. Check this out. This is not the normal rear design that you would find in any other car, because this has 2 different tail lamp designs. Specifically, let's check out the left light. You have the wide clear lens tail lamp here. That's because this doubles up as a reverse tail lamp. And now the interesting part is this reverse tail lamp is not there on the right side. That's because Maruti Suzuki very thoughtfully and cleverly decided that let's omit a reverse tail lamp here and give in a rear fog lamp. Now the primary reason of rear fog lamp is not for the driver of this car or the occupants of this car. The primary reason is for the car following this particular SX4. It gives them a clear indication that they have to follow exactly here in very low limited visibility conditions, which is a very nice thing. But unfortunately, due to the cost cutting victims, a lot of manufacturers are emitting just the front fog lamp. Forget about the rear fog lamp. Speaking of the rear design, again it got a very contemporary design, and this is something that slowly aged with people because people were not exactly ready for the raised up rear design. And look at the way this car looks. My goodness, it looks spectacular, and this looks very fascinating, especially from the rear 3/4. Now the interesting thing is parking sensors were a very big thing back then. Modern cars like even Celerio get parking sensors today, but parking sensors were not exactly factory fitted for this car. But Maruti Suzuki, being Maruti Suzuki, they told customers that you can still get parking sensors for this car through their outlet, that is Maruti Genuine Accessories, and you could have parking sensors directly from the showroom itself, which was a big thumbs up. Speaking of the boot space, this got a proper 505 liters of boot space. The speciality is the boot is very generous, and even the loading bay is exactly where you would want to be. It's not too high, it's not too low. But the coolest part lies here. You also had a thread here which you can tie so that you don't have to fiddle with it every single time you want to access the spare wheel, which was an alloy wheel. Yes, today modern day cars are downsizing their wheels, forget about offering alloy wheels, but Maruti Suzuki back then did not know the meaning of cost cutting. Maruti Suzuki did not want to get into that game, and that's why they had this generous spare wheel which was a proper 16-inch alloy. It was not even downsized by a single inch. It was a very big thing back then. Hey, but wait, where is the antenna for the car? I cannot see an antenna here. I cannot see a shark fin antenna, of course, which was way too modern for 2007. But wait, this car was cooler than a lot more modern cars because this car got a printed glass antenna. You might mistake it for the rear defroster, but no. This got a defroster as well, and along with it, it got a nice printed glass antenna. Apart from the fact that you got a generous 50-liter petrol tank capacity, you could actually stuff the fuel cap here very neatly, and you could secure it so that it does not fall off or scratch the body of the car. Extremely thoughtful. You got this removable IRVM which was so damn cool, and whenever you want, you could easily fit it back like this. And speaking of the sun visors, looks like Maruti Suzuki wanted only the co-passenger to look good. That's why they omitted the mirror here, but you got a mirror here for the passenger side where you could easily set your hair or do whatever you want. And you had this nice old school cabin lights here. Speaking of the consoles here, you had this 3-spoke steering wheel, and you got audio controls on the steering wheel, which was super duper cool back then. The instrument cluster was very nice, classy and neat. Tacho on the left, speedo on the center. You had the fuel gauge and the temperature gauge, of course. The steering was adjustable for rake, but there was no telescopic adjustment, which is completely fine. Another very small quirk, which is again a big thing, is, for example, if the headlamps are in off position, you have the odometer here, you have trip A and you have trip B. But once you switch on the headlamp and you try to toggle the switch here, you had the odometer, trip A, trip B, and there was a very cool console to adjust the brightness of the instrument cluster. When you long press this, the intensity and brightness of the instrument cluster varies from maximum to minimum, which was so freaking thoughtful. And then you had the outside temperature indicator along the clock here, the AC vents. You got this superb integrated 2-din music system, which was again way ahead of its time. You had the auto climate control, no manual control business back then. And the coolest part is all 3 buttons went completely inside. You had a cigarette lighter here, and of course you had this super duper cool removable ashtray, which was completely portable. You could keep it wherever you want. And mind you, this was not an accessory. This was a standard equipment from Maruti Suzuki back then. And this car was made to a 5-speed gearbox here, and this is the manual handle because there were no electronic parking brake back then. And then the seats are very comfortable. This is definitely one of the most comfortable seats I've seen in a modern day car. And you had this really unique ride-by-wire accelerator pedal, which means that it was not connected to some cable or something. This car also got height adjusting driver's seat 17 years ago. The seat is super duper comfortable. You have also got an illuminated key ring. This definitely has to be the best seat one could ask for back in that decade when cars were launched left, right and center. Just look at the way this armrest comes in. It's not saggy even after 17 years of usage. This is very comfortable. There's not a single moment where you feel that you're sitting in a sedan. It just feels like you're sitting in a proper SUV. Definitely a lot better than a lot of pseudo SUVs of these times. You have very nice legroom, and this underthigh support has to be written in the record books because this is definitely a 10 on 10. The headroom was also really nice and generous. Overall, the rear seat space looks very good. You got the very thoughtful height adjustable seat belts for the front passengers. Now another interesting quirk here is you got proper removable headrest for all 4 occupants in this car. In fact, 4 out of 5 occupants. But Maruti Suzuki later realized that these are slightly bigger. That's why they reduced the size of this so that it would be easy for people to reverse when they're reversing the car. Just Maruti Suzuki thing. Overall, this is one of the fantastic race seats I've ever seen. But that's not the end of it. You got this. This is the remote of the music system, which was from the factory itself, and you could adjust the volume, you could control the channel, aux, source, everything directly from this remote here. which still gets a cover. That is my friend Dr. Walking Wellness maintaining his cars. You should check out the other cars that we have reviewed from his garage, which are spectacular in condition. This does not feel like a 17-year-old car at all. The SX4 was powered by a 1.6 liter petrol engine, the 4-cylinder one that produces around 105 bhp and 145 Newton meters of torque. Speaking of the visibility, the bonnet is visible completely from the driver's seat here thanks to the height adjustment option which is available in the seat, which was again a very big thing back then. You got the hydraulic power steering, no electric power steering business. So it's not that the steering is very light or something, but you're going to absolutely love the feedback of the steering wheel. You point a bit here and the car exactly moves there. This is again a very thoughtful thing, especially from the driving dynamics, because people loved that this car drove really well. This engine's responsiveness is also very nice. You know, the throttle response is good. The mid-range is super duper healthy. Speaking of the gearbox, this was actually made it to a 5-speed manual gearbox. There's one small concern in the driving dynamics of this car, that is the absence of 6th gear. My friend Anish feels that, you know, this car should have got a 6th gear. That would have enhanced the driving experience a lot, because of the 5th gear availability here, just 5 gears. It feels that this car sorely misses the 6th gear. And apart from that, everything else is nice. The brakes are good. This had 2 disc brakes in the front and the drum brakes at the rear. But that does not mean that this car had bad braking power or something. It was adequate, but having 4 disc brakes would be really great in this car, because this car has very few shortcomings and very few flaws. The gear shifts also really shift very nicely. They're short, crisp, just like the typical Maruti Suzuki gear shifts, because Maruti Suzuki, again, their cars are known for the nice short gear throws. The legacy continues here in the SX4 as well. The top speed of the SX4 was 180 km/h, but up to 80-100 speed, the car is super duper composed. It's only when you cross the 130 mark you start feeling slightly nervous. Speaking of the ride quality, we just crossed a bump here and you have no reasons to complain. The ride quality of this car was very nice. And you can see the CDR there, the yellow CDR. So this car actually competed with the likes of the Honda Civic, the CDR, and a lot more other cars. This is the horn of the car. The SX4 got 2 airbags, which was again a newer thing back then. Thank you so much for being part of this very important and a special review of the car of my very close friend Anish Vidyashankar, who is also the walking violinist. Thank you so much for getting us here, and big kudos and shout out to you for keeping the car so damn clean even after 17 years of usage.